to this video about airplanes. That's why there are a bunch of models of airplanes and jets over here. You know this guy, right? Dusty. Anyways, have you ever dreamed of flying through the air? Have you ever saw birds and dreamed of you were one? Have you ever flapped your arms? Have you ever flapped your arms and ran around like you were a bird soaring through the sky? Like, perfect timing for a glider. Have you ever watched airplanes like I am right now? Have you ever made paper airplanes? Have you ever watched other airplanes or jets or helicopters? Well, you're not alone. There goes that airplane. People in ancient times have also learned and dreamed of flying. They told stories like that mighty Greek mythic horse Pegasus, which had wings that soared through the clouds. And they watched mammals and birds flying through the air, and soon they created airplanes like that. How? Well, here's the trick. They got ideas. They built them, and with every idea that they tested, they learned something new. They learned about gravity. You know about gravity, right? When I jump, gravity pulls me down right away. Gravity is the force that makes you stay on the Earth's surface. That's why when you jump, you don't just go up and float in space in the sky. Gravity pulls you down. They also learned about air. Air is made up of molecules. But you don't really feel the air until there's like a big wind or breeze. They also learned about drag. When I run around, I feel drag within my arms. Drag is air, is the air molecules pushing on you or an object. That's why when I run around, the air molecules or the drag pushes on my arm and I can feel it. So, next, but they also invented kites, which they fly. The kites were perfect for the wind, and they loved them so much until they wanted to fly better. They want to make something to fly better. They want to make something like birds. They wanted their kites to be like birds. The kites had something different about birds. Birds had something different about kites. Kites didn't have something that birds did have. Birds had, kites didn't have wings. So, people bird watched and bat watched the animals fly, and they got their own ideas, which they tested. So, gliders had very long and thin wings, and they were light. So, a glider at that age can only carry 1 or 2 passengers. If gliders could carry more than 1 or 2 passengers, it needed more lift. But how can it get more lift? The answer is, drum roll, an engine. An engine is the answer. An engine is basically a machine that makes energy into movement. The forward movement that a glider or a plane needs is called thrust. The more thrust the glider has or airplane has, the more lift it has. The more lift it has, the more weight it has. And the more weight it has, the more passengers or cargo it can carry. People have really, really learned to fly. That is all I can say. So now I'm going to talk about the history of airplanes. Who invented these guys? Who talk about the Wright brothers, who were Orville and Wilbur. We're going to talk about Charles Lindbergh, and we're going to talk about Amelia Earhart. So, the Wright brothers, who were famous for their invention of airplanes, dreamed of airplanes long time ago. But wait! Dreaming of airplanes wasn't there yet. When they were just kids, small kids like me, they received a toy from their father they called the bat. They loved to play with it. And they also built kites, which they sold, which the brothers sold to children. Just then, when Wilbur and Orville were growing up, when Wilbur was age 13, he decided to go to college, which was very good of him. But in a hockey game, he got knocked down, lost all his front teeth, and his head hurt. So he decided not to go to college. But then, when he was feeling better, the real front teeth were replaced by fake front teeth, and then they started to write a newspaper. Wilbur did most of the writing and stories, and Orville published it. It was a great success. But then, they started owning a bicycle shop. They loved bicycles. They started selling, and more people loved bicycles. The Wright brothers loved bicycling. But one day, Orville got a high fever. His family was worried that he was going to die. But luckily, Wilbur was there. And Orville went to bed, and Wilbur read him books. What did he read to Orville? Airplane books, flight books, inventors' books. Who invented airplanes? He read about Otto Lilienthal, who was a German engineer who loved the science of flight. When Orville was feeling better, they started to make their own flying machine. They knew that airplanes needed three things: strong wings, an engine, and a way of steering. Wilbur birdwatched, and he noticed that when birds wanted to change direction, they kind of twisted the tips of their wings. So Wilbur wondered how he could put changes to the airplane like their birds. They built also their first kite, which was a big success. Then they started going into gliders, which they tested at Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk is a place in North Carolina which has lots of wind. Gliders are basically airplanes, but wind-powered. So they tested many gliders. And they made one, and now they were in the next step, to create an engine. They created the Flyer 1, which was their glider with an engine. But they had to decide who would go first. It could only hold one person. Who could go first? They tossed a coin. Wilbur won the coin toss. It launched up, gone back down, and crashed. Luckily, Wilbur was not hurt. It took them 2 days to repair the Flyer 1. For that 3 years, for the fall, they were at Kitty Hawk, trying their new gliders. But the rest of the seasons, they were at Daytown, Ohio. Now, they started building more bigger gliders, and they moved on to bigger airplanes. They are very world famous. They are written in books. They're really world famous for their invention. Wright was the first person to fly the airplane on December 17th, which is the day I'm taking the video right now. So that is about the history of airplanes. Actually, there are 2 more pilots to go. Now we'll start about Charles Lindbergh. After they invented airplanes, Charles Lindbergh had an idea. He, even though newspapers called him a bad flyer, he wanted to become world famous. He wanted to fly all the way from New York to the Atlantic Ocean. He flew all the way across the Atlantic Ocean from New York to Paris. His airplane was called the Spirit of St. Louis. He flied and flied. He was tired and he slept, but he knew he had to get there to the finishing point, and he did. French people welcomed him when he got to Paris. He was world famous. And that's why I'm explaining him to you now. And now this is the last pilot, Amelia Earhart. This is the last pilot that we're going to talk about. Amelia Earhart, just like Charles Lindbergh, was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Amelia Earhart wanted to look like other pilots. She slept in a leather jacket for 3 days, so it wouldn't look so old and it wouldn't look so new and stiff. And she flew an airplane. She flew all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. And then she even had a better idea. After she won the award of flying across the Atlantic Ocean, the first woman, she got a better idea. She wanted to fly all around the world. She believed that women could do anything that men could do. So, she brought up a sidekick, who was a man. They both tried to sail across the Pacific Ocean, but at that exact moment, they flew into a patch of cloudy skies. No one could find Amelia Earhart, the man, or the airplane. She could have died. No one knows. But they knew that was the end of the plane. So that's it all about Amelia Earhart. All of these pilots and inventors are worldwide famous because of their inventions. The airplane and how they piloted it and how they invented it. So if you've gone to a trip on an airplane, you should have seen these steps. You should have got your bag, boarding course. You should have gone through the security checks. You should have boarded the plane. That is how a passenger does it. But in a pilot's way, it's different. Right, co-pilot? Right. So, me with my co-pilot here are going to discuss how the pilot gets on and off here. So, first, they discuss the flight plan in the pilot's lounge. They go from start to finish and adjust the altitudes and fuel for the weather. Then they go to the airplane where they hand in their luggage, which is handed to some person who carries it to the airplane. Then the pilot and co-pilot goes inside the cockpit and they check and they see if the instruments are working. Radio? Check. Batteries? Check. Navigation lights? Check. Navigation instruments? Check. Gauges? Check. The rudder pedals are for the rudder. Check. The control yoke is for the ailerons. Check. The lever arm The lever arm is for the flaps. Check. And now, next, they do the final checks of the instruments. Check. Check. Wipers? Check. Rest of the navigation lights? Check. Okay. Then, when they receive information from the airline control tower and airline control people that it's time to go, when they get the message that it's time to go, they take off. They push the throttle levers completely, making the plane go faster and into the sky. Then the landing gear clunks into the airplane, making the landing gear doors close. Then the pilot switches the autopilot on. Check. So the pilot doesn't need to do any work. The autopilot just steers the plane day and night. Radar from the nose of the plane tells if bad weather is coming. Like I said, they adjusted the fuel and the altitudes for the weather, so the pilot can steer along the storm to its exact location. And then the landing gear doors switch open, and then the autopilot is off. And then the throttle levers increase, and then the landing gear opens. The wheels, all 6 wheels open, and then clunk, clunk, clunk. The wheels go down on the ground, and everyone is buckled their seatbelt, so it will be safe. And when they get to the finishing point, all of the people take off their seatbelts and go. But the pilot goes out and goes through the flight report. Then they go to another flight, if possible. That is how the pilot goes through. Now we're going to talk about the parts of an airplane with this model, starting with the engine. The engine has 4 parts. The combustion chamber, which burns the jet fuel and the air. The compressor, which compresses the air. The turbine, which turns the fan and the compressor, and the fan, which brings the air inside the engine. Now the parts of the wing, starting with the root, which connects the wing to the body of the plane, which is called the fuselage. And they're not shown here, but the ailerons help with turning the plane. The flaps help with increasing the lift and increasing the drag. The slats do the same thing, but only with lift. And there are also spoilers, which slow down the plane. Now we're going to talk about the parts of the tail. Starting with the rudder, which makes the plane turn just like the ailerons do. The elevators, which makes the nose of the plane go up and down. Basically, that's it. And now we're going to talk about the middle part. Fuselage, which is the body of the plane. Passenger cabin, where all the passengers sit. And the hold, which is where the bottom of the plane is. And baggage is. Now the nose of the plane. Mostly the nose of the plane has the propeller, which spins to make the plane go. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to Jigin's channel, and I hope you have a happy learning time with flight and airplanes. Bye!